In modern society, discussions about power dynamics, particularly in relationships and sexual interactions, often blur the lines between dominance and toxicity. Dominance, when expressed healthily, can be a natural and even desirable aspect of human sexuality and social interaction. However, society frequently mislabels dominance as inherently toxic, especially when it comes to masculine sexual energy. This confusion stems from a lack of understanding about the differences between assertive dominance, a confident, controlled expression of power, and toxic dominance, manipulative, coercive, or abusive behavior. The conflation of dominance with toxicity has led to a cultural shift where strong, assertive behavior, especially in men, is often stigmatized rather than respected. This misunderstanding creates problems in dating dynamics, workplace leadership, and even personal self-expression. To navigate this issue, we must distinguish between healthy dominance and toxic behavior, recognizing that dominance itself is not the problem. Its misuse is. True dominance is not about control. It is about responsibility. It is about a man who has mastered his own chaos so deeply that others feel safe in his presence. He does not need to raise his voice or impose his will. His energy speaks before he opens his mouth. His boundaries are clear, his gaze is steady, and his presence commands attention, not from ego, but from embodiment. This form of dominance is intimately linked with sexual energy, not the shallow energy of chasing pleasure, but the deep, magnetic current of life force that flows through a man who is no longer leaking his seed. A man who retains and channels his sexual energy becomes powerful, not because he dominates others, but because he has dominion over himself. He no longer lives at the mercy of lust. He is no longer enslaved to validation or empty desires. This makes him rare. This makes him noticeable. And this makes society uncomfortable. When a man radiates from his core, he often triggers others, especially those who are disconnected from their own power. He may be labeled as intimidating, controlling, or toxic, even when his behavior is ethical and grounded. Why? Because we live in a culture that fears masculine vitality. We have grown so used to mediocrity, indecisiveness, and passive men that when a man shows up with strength and certainty, it is mistaken for abuse. This is especially true for men on the semen retention path. A man who is holding his seed and refining his energy becomes perceptibly different. His posture changes. His eye contact sharpens. His voice deepens, not just in sound, but in intention. His energy becomes more centered, more penetrating, more alive. But the world, shaped by decades of emasculation and media caricatures, sees his power and panics. Because it doesn't understand the difference between dominance and dominance disorder. It doesn't understand that what it's witnessing is integrated masculinity, not toxicity. To understand this confusion, we must look back at the conditioning imposed on men from childhood. Boys are often taught to suppress their instincts. They're told to be nice, to not be too much, to shrink themselves so others don't feel uncomfortable. Assertiveness is called aggression. Ambition is called arrogance. Emotional stoicism is mislabeled as coldness. And sexuality? That's often shamed, hidden, or distorted into objectification. As a result, many boys grow into men who either overcompensate by becoming domineering, entitled, or manipulative, wounded masculine, or collapse into passivity, people-pleasing, and internalized guilt for being men at all. The healthy middle path, embodied masculine dominance, is almost never modeled. This means when a man finally reclaims his sexual energy through semen retention, personal healing, and conscious self-development, society doesn't know what to do with him. It doesn't recognize this kind of man. And instead of listening or learning, it often attacks. Sexual energy, when refined, becomes leadership energy. It is not just about libido or pleasure. It is about magnetism, clarity, presence, and decisiveness. A man who learns to transmute his sexual energy no longer chases women. He attracts them. He no longer needs external validation. He is rooted in purpose. His aura becomes unshakable. He becomes more direct, more aligned with truth. His intuition sharpens. He begins to speak less but say more. He stops leaking energy in cheap dopamine habits and starts directing that energy into mission, art, and impact. This kind of man is dominant by nature, not because he wants to overpower others, but because his energy fills space. It cannot be ignored. And that's exactly what modern society finds threatening. We are told that leadership must be inclusive, soft, or democratic at all times. But true leadership is sometimes fierce. It has to be. It has to make hard decisions. It has to say no with finality. It has to set unshakable boundaries. That kind of presence, when it comes from a sexually refined man, is seen as scary. But it is only scary to those who are unfamiliar with true masculine love, a love that is as firm as it is tender. The weaponization of the word toxic, the term toxic masculinity, originally had a meaningful purpose: to call out harmful, unconscious male behaviors like violence, suppression of emotion, and emotional unavailability. But in recent years, it has been weaponized. It is now often used as a blanket term to shame all expressions of masculine energy, especially those that are confident, directive, or sexually potent. If a man leads with conviction, he's controlling. If he honors his boundaries, he's arrogant. If he expresses attraction directly, he's creepy. If he abstains from lust and operates with celibate focus, he's repressed. If he speaks from power, he's toxic. This dilution of language makes it impossible to differentiate between a man who is abusive and a man who is just powerful. And that confusion harms everyone, especially women, who are left surrounded by either weak men or narcissists, with very few truly grounded men in between. The irony is that while society outwardly criticizes dominant men, many women inwardly crave that exact energy when it is conscious. Women do not crave toxicity, but they deeply crave presence, direction, and strength. A man who knows where he is going. A man who is unshakable in his values. A man who can lead without needing control. This kind of dominance creates safety. It opens a feminine. It invites surrender, not in submission, but in trust. A woman can only truly relax when she feels a man has command of himself. But most men have been robbed of that power. Through porn, through emasculating culture, through constant overstimulation, and weakened will. Most men no longer know what it feels like to be sexually full without spilling, to be potent without needing release. When a man returns to that place, when he stops wasting his seed, when he reclaims his body as a temple, when he channels that energy into creation, he becomes a man that both genders need. He becomes a lighthouse. And that lighthouse scares those who still live in the storm. In a world full of noise, the dominant man is silent. In a world full of weakness, he is disciplined. In a world full of craving, he is content. This man is not toxic. He is medicine. He has confronted his shadows and alchemized them. He has faced lust and chosen purpose. He has walked through rejection, temptation, and mockery, and emerged grounded.